we go. Don't play the video until I come back from the bathroom. It's too bad, dude. It's gonna be right now. How about the DPS comp you said that you would do yesterday? We'll see what happens, man. We'll see what happens. All right, here we go. Titanforging, good or bad? So it's a picture, as you guys can see, a picture of Thanos and Arnold Schwarzenegger. Oh, Titan, because he's a... Oh, okay. All right, I like it. All right, let's see what we've got here. That's Bajira? Oh, shit. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, Titanforging. Hot topic recently, but it's been around for a while.
Okay.
Why is it now such a big thing? Why is it a thing that people are pointing at as... And this is just getting stupid. This has just gotten ridiculous. A lot of people feeling that way. And it's an interesting one because it has been around for so long. And many people have grumbled at it. They have featured it as being an issue for some people.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been the forefront of issues. Now it's...
What has been for me?
A lot of people are talking about. It's like, this is just really dissatisfying and unrewarding. This I don't like the way this is working anymore. It's destroyed a lot of my ambition. But a lot of people are also saying is like, I don't see it as a problem, because why would you care what other people have? And that is a kind of stance I have. I don't care what other people have in terms of gear. So is it a problem? Well, I think we should talk about it a little bit, because there are pros.
All right, so one thing I want to say before we even get into any of this is that obviously I think, I'll turn it all the way up, is that if you were to look, right, with a lot of people that say they don't care, many of those people are using titles and mounts that are exclusive to things that they have done and accomplished, because people like to show off ways to distinguish themselves from other players. It's a psychological thing, and it's one of those things that I think almost everybody plays into. The reason I don't think Titanforging was as big of an issue in Legion, and it's becoming a bigger issue now, is actually going to go back into Diablo 3. What's 100k? Wait, 100k what? Oh, what? Yo, thank you, dude. I appreciate that, Quetzal. Thank you so much, man. I really, thank you, man. Wow, thank you so much. 100 fucking K. The reason I don't think it's as big of an issue is actually going to go back to Diablo 3. Each progressive season that people do has less and less people participating in it, because people become less and less engaged because they realize that they're just being put on a treadmill, and people only want to run a treadmill so many times. So as Season 4 and Season 5 and Season 6 were very popular, as time has gone on, people have dropped off and stopped playing the game because they've realized that the game is just a loot simulator, and I think that's what's happening with WoW.
And cons to it, which is the case of most things. You can't just say, this is definitely a problem and everybody should agree with me, right? That's crazy. But also at the same time, you can't just say, no, it's not an issue at all.
Yeah.
There's no problems with this system in any way. Is there a better system? I don't know, but I think we should have a little talk about it, because I do have thoughts about it. As somebody who really doesn't care what anybody else has, I'm not that bothered. It doesn't affect me at all. It still has an effect on me.
Yes, it does.
Personally, yes, it does. And I also think it maybe has been a big contributor to some problems that a lot of people have in World of Warcraft in general. So when did it appear? It appeared in patch 5.2, and we had an interview with Watcher, who was the, he was the cheese behind it, essentially. And
that was Throne of Thunder, by the way.
The first response we had as players once we heard this announcement of this Thunderforging, as it was called then, was actually a big remedy to rebuild the 25-man raiding scene, which had been destroyed by the Cataclysm expansion. And if you're not sure what that means, is when Cataclysm launched, it came with the promise that 10 and 25 were now going to be equal. There was going to be 10 heroic, 25 heroic. That was the hardest.
Yeah, I totally forgot about this.
And it was going to be equally balanced and
all
this kind of stuff. Same gear, everything. But that's not what happened. And very quickly, Blizzard realized that 10-man was going to be an issue. Now, I just want to put here, this isn't about whether you prefer or hate 10-man. I'm not interested in that. That's not my issue at all. If you prefer 10-man, that's great. That's great.
Just a minute. Is the audio... Is it loud? Let me see. Let me play my own stream and see. Just a minute. Is the audio... Let me play it loud. Let me play it in the stream.
But Blizzard found there were obvious logistical problems.
Okay, testing, 1, 2, 3. Let me play it in the stream.
But Blizzard found there were obvious logistical problems.
Okay, testing, 1, 2, 3. Let me play it in the stream.
But Blizzard found
it's fine. Shut the fuck up, you morons. What the fuck are you guys talking about? It's fine.
It or not. And that was that there are a lot of classes in the game with multiple specs each, and trying to create raid encounters that accounted for such a small amount of players was extremely difficult, and in fact impossible. You couldn't do it because you were able to stack so much more heavily in 10-man as opposed to 25-man. You could easily get together some very, very, very skewed compositions. So when Blizzard were designing encounters, they were like, people could bring like 4 priests here, or 3 demonology warlocks was a big one in Cataclysm. How are we going to deal with this? So
I forgot all about this.
It's like in a 10-man
I totally forgot about this.
Every niche ability you bring, and it's kind of similar to Mythic Plus, which will be more relatable for you now. When you do look at the extreme top end of Mythic Plus, like the things you see in the MDI, that's when like the individual abilities that each class and spec is bringing become far more prominent because of the vastly reduced amount of players involved. So it becomes, if you've only got 5 players, you need to be covering certain bases because they make your time that much easier in comparison to having it spread out across a lot of players. So when you're designing encounters, it's like, well, how many priests do we expect them to bring here? How many of this class and this class?
This is why they did Titanforging back in the day.
Single target healers? How many healers in general? All these things become really, really difficult to sort out in 10-man, and they simply couldn't do it. And in Cataclysm, what we had is just encounters that required 10-man heroic guilds specifically, and I was one. I was World 13th. I was not in a bad guild at all at the time.
That's actually really good.
We had people with like 4 or 5 different classes because that's how skewed it was.
Neckbeards.
So the other side of this coin is that 10-man offering the same rewards as 25 obviously meant that new startup guilds were not going for 25-man. They were going for 10-man. Despite 25-man dropping on average more loot per player, starting a 25-man guild obviously has way more difficulty than starting a 10-man. It's
so
very obvious numbers on paper. I need to find, what, 10 or 11 or 12 people to start my 10-man and make it safe, as opposed to maybe 30 players for a 25-man in order to make that workable on a day-by-day, week-by-week, whatever your raid schedule basis is. So when the 25-mans were dissolving, which all guilds do churn, guilds start and they die, the new guilds that were starting were all 10-man. And the 25-man player scene started to drop. And what Blizzard was left with was this completely unbalanceable equation, which was now encompassing more and more people. It's like a growing problem that just was getting way out of hand. And the counter to that, which would be 25-man, which they could do cool stuff in, was getting smaller and smaller. So when
So here's basically like what he's saying, just so everybody can understand. Pretty much because 10-man was easier to get into just by the nature of it requiring only 10 people instead of 25-man, less 10-man guild or less 25-man guilds were happening and more 10-man guilds were happening, and 25-man was dying out. And so what Blizzard ended up doing is they made Titanforging and Thunderforging at that time a higher chance to occur on 25-man. I totally forgot that happened. It was so long ago.
Thunderforging came out. Part of the selling point of Thunderforging is that with the increased amount of loot that will drop in a 25-man environment, there's far more chance that you will get Thunderforged items in a 25-man. So in the 10-man, which usually, I think it was 2 or 3 items in Mists of Pandaria, there's less chance of you getting Thunderforged. So we obviously saw it initially as, okay, you're trying to incentivize people to join the 25-man world because they'll get better gear. And everybody's like loot-hungry players, right? Everybody's these loot-hungry monsters who just wants item level. There's far better chance of you getting a really LOL item level, even in 10-man, in 25-man normal mode, not just heroic mode, by joining this Thunderforge system. In the interview that Wowhead had with Watcher, he said that wasn't the only reason. That was kind of a starting reason, but it wasn't the only reason. And he even goes on to say that was kind of a byproduct. The other reason that this came in, and this is the interesting one,
just to get people to keep playing longer.
That they said
that's what it was.
They were running into players who were stuck at certain bosses, and they were getting bored of clearing the previous bosses for little to no reward. So they came up with this sort of fictional scenario. Now, I say fictional because I've never really heard of this happening.
Because they made it up. That's why it was fictional. They made it up.
Given the nature of what I make on YouTube and the amount of people who come to me, I never once, and I can say this honestly, I have never once heard of this happening. The idea was that guilds were stuck on a boss, and his example was Sulong in Terrace of the End of Spring.
It would take them so long.
But they've killed everything before that multiple times, and he actually says 9 times. And everybody has all the gear they can get from every boss before Sulong and can't kill Sulong. So they're farming these same bosses over and over again, disenchanting everything. And this is entirely in this post. I'll link it for you. Don't worry. It's down below. This is not me making this up. Is that the guilds were disenchanting every single item that was dropping and being unable to do Sulong. So with Thunderforge, there was then a better incentive to re-clear these bosses where previously you would never have wanted an item from, and still get upgrades.
Just create an extra incentive. That's what it was.
To overcome challenges. And what they meant by that essentially is you will overgear this boss that you can't do mechanically. And that's what they're saying here. There's no other way of manipulating this. This is what they're saying. Is essentially we're going to just let you overgear the fight. If you're stuck on it and you can't figure out how to do it, or your players aren't good enough to deal with it, we're just going to let you overgear it. And the way we're...
So, just for a little bit of context, this was in the second patch of Mists of Pandaria. And in the previous 2 expansions, in Dragon Soul and also in ICC, most recently Dragon Soul, people were able to get a compounding buff that would, or actually it was a debuff on the bosses that would make the bosses deal less damage and have less health. So players did have a way that every single week that they were coming to Dragon Soul, or every other week or whatever, it would become more and more powerful. And that's basically what would happen. The issue really was that this ended up being a much bigger issue than just adding in the buff that would be specific to the specific raid.
We're going to do that is by introducing this Thunderforge system, so you'll re-clear these bosses where typically you wouldn't want any loot, and that will give you higher item level loot, which you'll still want, will also increase the power of your raid, and the power of your raid will allow you to overcome a challenge that you simply cannot defeat because of its mechanics. That's the reason it's introduced, and that's what they think is going to be good. Okay? So, we're starting on a dangerous path here. And this is kind of where we've ended up in BFA. This is where it comes full circle. Because from that, of course, we then had Warforged and, of course, the Titanforging system. Which then fed itself into all areas of the game. Everything from world quests and quest rewards, right? Not even world quests. You get this while you're leveling with quest rewards. Where loot will randomly proc, okay? It will randomly have a chance to become significantly better than the item you deserve. Now, that's the important word here, than the item you deserve. This quest gives you this item. This is what you deserve for completing this task, but there is a chance you will get a significantly larger upgrade
that you don't deserve.
What you deserve.
Then what? Yeah, you don't deserve that.
And this will enable you to be more powerful going forward to do other challenges. Right. Okay. Now,
not good.
That's the system. You all know the system. That's where it comes from. And that's where we are. What's the pros of this system? 1, everything you do has a chance to give you an upgrade. There is no denying that whatsoever. That is a pro of the system. Everything you do, even if it's content that you should not really be doing with that character. So if you are a Mythic Raider, you shouldn't really at this point be doing world quests outside of Artifact Power.
Yeah.
You probably don't want to be doing Mythic 0s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. You probably don't want to be doing LFR, normal mode, or heroic mode, right? Of every piece of content below like Mythic Raiding or super high keys, which are still capped at 370. So you could even say if you're a Mythic Raider where the loot that drops there is 385 base, you may not even want to do Mythic 10. Right? You might want to do it once. The
chances are so
cash,
low.
You probably do. But after that, there's no upgrades there. So your character, who is 385 or getting up there, is likely to not want to do any of the other content for gear. For gear. You might have other reasons to be there. Pets, mounts, AP, whatever. But for gear,
that's the important
really
part.
Want to be there, right? Now, that creates in itself a number of problems. One of the things it does is it deters raiders from going into lower content. Now, Blizzard has been quite open. They haven't said it expressly, but they're quite openly incentivizing way overgeared players to do lesser content. Why? It increases the success chance for everybody else. And that's a big metric. And it was a metric they revealed during the Cataclysm, right? One other note you'll find during Mists of Pandaria is they intentionally changed all the difficulty of heroic dungeons back down to what they had created in Wrath of the Lich King, because players found Cataclysm Heroics considerably too difficult.
They weren't. They were only hard because the group finder.
Done. And they said there were dungeons with a tremendously low success rate. And they measure that metric. How many groups are being farmed? How many groups are succeeding, particularly in queuable content?
No.
Because queuable content is designed for Mr. Casual. And there are a lot of Mr. Casuals. And they want to make sure that if you only have an hour or two to play a week, or whatever it is, that you're paying your subscription and how you're using that time, if you're logging in and you're trying to do the daily heroic, you're trying to do the LFR, something like that, that if you're waiting in that queue and you get in there, then you should be able to complete it. And
so it's a guaranteed success.
Is get very overgeared people into that content. So we have things like Titanforging, and we also have things like Augment Runes. Augment Runes, not particularly useful for people who are doing lower end content. They're not that useful. However, they are very useful for people pushing very challenging content. Very, very useful for those. So it's an incentive for those people to go into that content and also bring with them their heavy artillery that they've got with their gear, clear that content, and also maybe they'll get a chance at some sort of Titanforged item, right? That's something that also gives them a bonus. It also incentivizes people to go and do multiple high-end mythics. They're playing a lottery in terms of trying to get Titanforged items, but it does give them more content to do. These are all pros. Because I guarantee you now, if you were a Mythic Raider and Mythic Plus didn't have Titanforging in it, you wouldn't be there beyond a Wednesday or a Tuesday or whatever your reset is. No, I'm not going to go there. It certainly in BFA, where it has very little artifact power, you might want to carry your friends every now and again or help out. That's fine. But in terms of your own personal character progression, that entire content system is dead. Unlike Legion, where we got decent AP rewards as well as legendaries from doing Mythic Plus.
I guess like AP was the reason to go back and do old stuff.
Plus, past gaining gear.
Looks like now it's not as big of a deal with Azure.
Trying to push a key as high as it can possibly go with your cool gear. You wouldn't be there. And in BFA, they have killed all that stuff. That's a different matter for a different day.
Okay.
Does it create problems elsewhere? What does it do for me personally? Why is it a problem for me? It's killed the competitive side of a lot of the personal play in the game.
That's the way I felt too.
Problem with Titanfall.
That's why I stopped trying to go for logs.
Is using the same thing.
You're not playing on even playing field.
Controlled environment.
Yeah.
And some of us, and it's okay if you don't care. Like, I would like you to be more considerate of other people, as we all would in the world. But there are some of us who like the competitive side of it, and we feel a drive to perform as best as we can because we're competing with people all over the globe for these things. We like to do these things. But Titanforging kind of destroys that. And certainly when you involve gems and things like that, the differences and skews it makes are just pointless. It's like it's not of interest anymore because we're not all playing with the same weapon. It's like somebody's going to a shooting range, somebody has a grenade launcher, I have a knife, right? Or the vice versa. I have the grenade launcher. Do I feel
it's a bad time?
It works both ways. Do I feel good that I won because I managed to get a load of socketed items? No, not really. I mean, this is a thing as old as human history. Is a free win is not fun. Now, this is important because that's me at the very top end, right? That's what I care about. I like to be competitive. I
want to be able to play on an even playing field.
My own personal
that's what's important.
Damage performance, for example, if I was competing in some way. But I'm not competing in some way. And this is why more widespread, we're seeing more and more guilds just go to private logs because most people are realizing it doesn't really matter. As long as we get the job done, it doesn't really matter. And we want people to be free to go and do the shitty
apathy is a great thing.
Which costs them damage.
That's basically what it is. It's just apathy.
We want our players to be okay with doing that without appearing on some log as like being a scrubber dub, right? Or just some dipshit who goes, low damage. You know, that kind of thing. But has this had an effect elsewhere? Now I'm talking about the guys who are getting rewards that they don't deserve, right? And that includes myself, right? I don't...
Just a minute. Time out anybody that's doing that. It's annoying.
Deserve to get like a 400 item or 395 item or something. I didn't do anything to get that. I didn't do anything to get that. However, that filters down through everybody. I personally believe that this is a problem for other people. I personally believe even if you don't recognize it is a problem because I see the results of this problem everywhere. And that is that really over-gearing content in a video game helps nobody. And I'm not just talking about WoW. I'm talking about any game.
I don't know about that, dude.
In most games that I see where this is a thing, it's really, really frowned upon.
That's the most fun, dude.
A lot of pre-order bonuses we see now with various games, even single-player games, seemingly come with overpowered weapons and things like that. Now, the fact that they exist tells me there are some players who really want to be overpowered as fuck from the get-go and have zero challenge in their game. Otherwise, why would these bonuses exist? Well, and they do exist.
Well,
that's all the time in various DLCs and promotions.
That's like the casual shit.
Is that if you pre-order, if you do various things, you become incredibly overpowered, and you literally nerf the whole game.
You give them more money.
Now, in a single-player game, no big deal. But we're not playing a single-player game. We're playing a multiplayer game. And what I see is huge amounts of players vastly, and I'm not talking about a little bit, vastly overgear the content they're going into before they step into it. Now, that's a problem because you're not learning anything. You're not getting any better. All the things that should kill you aren't killing you. You have too much HP. All the things that you shouldn't be able to kill because you don't know how to play your character, you are killing because you're naturally doing a lot of damage, despite the fact it's nothing to do with you. And now, you might say,
this is the same logic you can use for the group finder stuff, too.
In lower
you can say the exact same thing.
Because Titanforging and Warforging is far more
it's the same exact
the
fucking
lower
thing.
Your gear is. The higher up you go, certainly towards like the Mythic and the top of the Mythic Plus table, the higher the base item level goes, so the effect of Titanforge gets reduced and reduced and reduced the higher up you go.
Yeah.
Titanforging down the bottom end is actually a very big deal. It flies you up quite high compared to where you should be. And as we know, the game's item scaling is already way skewed.
Yeah.
And what do I mean by that? Getting 10, 20 item levels, which is something you'll be doing in lower gear very, very quickly, actually massively magnifies your damage. It's going up at a rate that is already stupid considering we've just had another damage squish because the numbers just inflate so fast. So getting these Titan Forges, War Forges, extra sockets, things like that are actually way buffing your performance compared to what you should be doing.
Never heard that.
And what we're seeing more and more and more, year on year on year, expansion on expansion as these systems exist, is players having no reason and just no incentive, having no benefit to get any better whatsoever, and becoming worse and worse and worse.
That way?
And also the knock-on effects of this now is what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, is that more and more of the regular player base are recognizing that gear means nothing now. It means absolutely nothing. And we're seeing the rise and rise of add-ons like Raider.io.
It's like apathy.
We saw
it's more apathy. That's what it is.
Very prominent there, and it's going even further now, is because there's just no way to tell whether this person is an absolute klutz who happens to be wearing very high gear.
Somebody who just got lucky.
Doesn't matter where it came from. But then you get them into your group and it's like, oh my God, this is like a disaster. This guy is causing us so many problems. Is that widespread? Hard to say. I have no data to back it up. But what I can say is when I see players running around with 350, 360, 370 and doing like 1, 2, 3, 4K DPS, I'm saying to myself, there's a lot of problems there with that guy. Yet he's still upgrading and progressing his character in some way, and it's not helping him. Because that's where it comes down to. Do I care that that guy has 360 item level? No, not in the least. I don't care. Doesn't bother me. But what I will say is it's bad for the player base.
Yeah,
it's bad for the game because there should be walls that guy has to overcome.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't just be a case of being way overgeared to do it. It shouldn't be just down to the fact that that guy can then go and keep spamming world quests or LFR.
And just get lucky.
Where everybody else is doing the job for them. Not that they realize it. I want to be clear on that. They might not realize that.
They don't even know they're shitty.
Not helping in any way. But they're still succeeding. They're still winning. And they're still getting upgrades upon upgrades upon upgrades. Their characters are becoming stronger and stronger and stronger. Will it ever be as strong as a Mythic Raider? No, but that's not the point. You would never be in a Mythic Raid anyway. That doesn't interest me. It doesn't bother me. What it does do is it pollutes the rest of the players. And that's what it obviously does. It pollutes everybody else's game experience who isn't in that environment.
Yes.
Those guys are out for Mythic Plus. Maybe they're doing 4s, 5s, and 6s.
It makes it meaningless.
Right? And we know. We've tested and we've seen that the worst place you can be doing Mythic Plus, like the hardest difficulty, is like between 6 and 8. like around there, like 5, 6, 7, and 8 is really bad because that's where you have these guys with hyperinflated item levels compared to what they deserve.
Oh,
and then they're all kind of bunched together and not getting any further and creating this sort of real mud in the middle. Whereas people who are getting into 10s who are being vetted in some way or have are being able to communicate in a way that makes them very clear that they understand.
So shitty players are being artificially inflated.
That's what it is. Than the guys who are doing 6s and 6s, 7s, and 8s and 9s, things like that. Those guys are having an easier time, which makes no logical sense, but that's what's happening. That is what's happening, and we see that. And we tested that. We went into those dungeons to see what was going on.
That's actually really funny.
And the lower the dungeon, the worse it got, the harder it got. It was the more difficult it was to deal with because there are so many players in there who have no idea what's going on.
The easier the dungeon, the harder the dungeon.
Having this inflated item level compared to what they should be able to access, and they've had to learn, not had to learn how to get past it, and that's a problem.
They don't have to learn anything because they just get lucky.
The only reason contributing to that? No. I mean, we could say very easily that there are lots of things contributing to that. The leveling experience can be done practically by anybody who can, put a hand on a keyboard. There's no difficulty there.
You don't even really need to do that.
Through most content. Most people who go even into heroic dungeons where you would hope they would have to learn something, they don't really because one player can carry it, right? And most players, a tank it's difficult to die. Let's put it that way. It's difficult
and you're incentivized to carry them.
To die in that environment, or even just the tank, or even a very strong DPSer who's after, I don't know, AP or something. They can carry the dungeon themselves anyway. And we've seen that historically throughout every expansion. Certainly when we've even seen complaints about it. I want to do my heroic dungeon. Big raider, big geared man turns up because in Legion they wanted to get their awakening essences or whatever it might be, and completely crush the dungeon, and I basically was just completely useless, right? We've seen those threads pop up. They're not rare. These aren't things that aren't happening. They're absolutely happening. And these are getting all these skews where people are being
almost hit one of
carried
those
all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying.
Getting carried. That's what they want.
But it's not done them any favors because by the time the carrying runs out and they actually have to deal with situations, they're having to start from square one.
Yeah.
They're at square 120. They're not having to learn from square 119 to 120, which would be a small learning curve. They're having to start from 0 because
they never learned anything beforehand.
They had to do much.
There's never a point where you're taught anything.
To complete world quests and get Warforged, Titanforged items. You don't have to do much of anything to get into LFR or LFD and get stuff from there. You don't have to do that. Now, it will only get you so far. You're not going to outgear a Mythic Raider. That's not what's going to happen, which is why most Mythic Raiders don't really care. But they would also like the competitive side back. It's not all smiles and roses at the top end. And I'm not going to say that there are certain counters we haven't beat because people were overgeared. That's exactly what's happened. But we also have no choice in the matter. Now let's refer down to the special snowflake syndrome, because a lot of people just go, you don't like Titanforging because special snowflakes. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I'm sure there are some people, I'm sure there are plenty of people who like to be the shiniest guy on the server. I don't fucking care. I can't even see members of my own server because of phasing. I don't know what you're talking about.
That's me.
I really don't understand it. I don't. In the world of transmog and all this, who's the special snowflake anymore? I don't understand what that argument is, and I think it's a nice comfort blanket to just dismiss this system as a whole.
What do you mean?
Because it doesn't make logical sense in game. You can go and you can't meet your own guildies on the same server. It doesn't work. You can see them sometimes, but a lot of times they won't be there. They'll be phased or sharded to a different phase of whatever. You can't see them. There's no special snowflakes anymore. Doesn't exist. Removing Titanforging wouldn't change that in any way, shape, or form. It wouldn't exist because you're most likely transmogged to something else completely different anyway. It's a total nonsensical argument. It's fucking ridiculous. Yeah. Get over yourselves and try to dismiss this as maybe there's a legitimate problem here, and just saying, oh well, everybody wants to be the special superhero.
These are like these are the LFR heroes.
Unless they're looking where their transmog item came from.
This is what they think.
Sense. It makes no sense whatsoever. And it does also probably make things balancing-wise hard for those of us who do enjoy the higher end. It's hard to balance because maybe people have got mega Titanforging. Maybe we killed that boss when we shouldn't, which I think is a really scary thought for a lot of guys who like progress, is maybe
I don't know about that.
Did this because of something we can't control. That's something we got lucky.
I mean, you can't control the other people in your raid either.
Now that's a factor.
I don't know if that's true.
At work? Sure. Personal loot, all kinds of things. Is there a better system than this? I know I'm a little old school here. I prefer the idea of the boss just drops what it drops, and that's it. And I can collect so the BIS list. I know what my BIS list is. This is the stuff I'm chasing.
You just get the gear.
And people will say, well, doesn't that make it boring to refarm? No, not really, because if you've got some competitive side in you, I can only speak for myself here, that's when you're starting to compete heavily against other people.
For logs and shit,
That's when it becomes more fun for me.
This is what matters.
I have the same stuff as everybody else.
You just get the gear.
Let's see what I can do with it. Let's see what I can make fun with it. And also at the other end, this is where we think badges and stuff should come back. Because if you're like, oh, I can't seemingly get any upgrades, but I could have got some badges, then the way you solve that is by going back into content that you deserve to be in.
Yes.
And doing it repeatedly and learning and learning. And practicing and learning and learning and learning.
What's that?
There are a bunch of other people who also want to be there and are also doing the same thing. Then you begin to upgrade your gear. Now you're going into the higher content that you can access with your better gear, and you're starting to put that to work. Now, has that worked for everybody? No. A lot of people just give up. And perhaps Titanforging is the carrot that keeps them playing, is that why they're doing that LFR. That's entirely possible too.
I don't know about that.
I hope I pointed out here, there are pros and cons to this system. It's not a new issue. Why is it so relevant in BFA? Simply because the gear we're chasing is also not exciting. And I think that's a big part of it as well. BFA has some extremely disappointing rewards. I'm not talking about Azerite gear, because that doesn't even Titanforge. I'm talking about everything else. So when you're like, I'm refarming here for Titanforge of stuff I'm not that interested in. Proc trinkets that randomly do stuff aren't that interesting. Chasing belts and bracers that have 2 random stats on them.
I like that.
Isn't that exciting? And therefore the whole system starts to break down, because it's like, you're asking me to refarm for like a slightly better haste crit belt.
Wow.
And it becomes more of a relevant problem when getting that sweet Titanforge isn't that exciting. Like, it's good, sure, but it isn't that exciting. And then you start to look at the gear system as a whole, and you're like, well, actually, all this gearing
what the hell is going on?
It's just flat, mundane stats with nothing exciting happening.
Yeah.
And now you can see why this stuff snowballs into where we are now, which is like, you know what? Fuck Titanforging. Fuck it. Because I don't want to farm and chase this gear, because it's boring as fuck to begin with. And that's where you get this dissatisfied feeling. Because, of course, we should mention that getting an item that doesn't Titanforge or Warforge or have a gem slot or something,
it's disappointing.
Is disappointing, because you've defeated the content where you should get it, right? You've done what you deserve.
You did.
And it dropped, but now you might need to farm that again and again and again.
That's
and
right.
It's not that exciting to begin with, and you can see
that's
how this
fucking right.
sort of mounts up on itself. But I would love to see your thoughts on it, guys. Those are some little history and some thoughts on the Titanforging system. Love to see what you guys have to say. Thank you so much for listening. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.
Okay. So, all right. So what I really think about this? Okay. So I want to show you guys pretty much what Preach was saying, because I think it actually is really, really important. Okay, guys. Just 1 second. Let me go ahead and open up Paint. All right. And I want to show you and give you a representation of what this is. All right. 20 minutes too long. Well, I mean, I think it was just a discussion, and it's okay. Like, I mean, yeah, the video was kind of long. I didn't expect it to be that long, but it is what it is. All right. So this. Oh. All right, I gotta do a new one. Just a second. Don't save that one. All right, so here is, and I think that, wait, 125, wait, 20, oh, wow, Quetzal, thank you so much. I appreciate that, man. Holy fuck, thank you, Quetzal. Wow. Thank you so much, man. Oh my God. Dude, this guy's giving me like a ton of fucking money. Like, thank you so much, man. Says, hey, what's up? Hey. Don't you owe someone 2 mil? He said I could not give the... I won't be on for a little while. Hospital. Ooh. Good luck, man. That's why I said to him. You guys can't see it, but where's the thing? Where's the paint? There it is. No, there's this one too. God damn, there's so many frames on here. Okay, there we go. Good. All right, yeah, thank you very much, man. Okay, so let me see what I've got going on here. All right, so Tips did this same graph, and I want to explain how it actually makes the exact same sense with like current WoW versus classic WoW. And this is the expectation that players have. So right now, in current WoW, this is the expectations for players. Okay? LFR, normal, heroic. Okay? So this is basically what happens. Is that there is a huge, huge, huge gap here. All right? So this is like level 10. This is like level 50. This is max level. AX max. And then LFR. And then this right here, whenever it goes up, is normal. Okay? So this is the first time where players actually have to step out of the they have to step out of the pre-created like child-proof game that Blizzard has created and actually rely on other people to play with them and be okay with what they're doing. And because they were never trained at level 10, they were never trained at level 50, they were never trained at max level, they were never trained at LFR to interact with anyone at all. And then as soon as you get to normal mode, then that's when everything kind of falls apart. Whereas before, with like Classic, if you compare this to like Classic or like even any other time, it would be like this. Because expectations would get higher as you would level up. So by the time you got to, let's say, max level, you were pretty close to being ready for normal. Whereas now, whenever you get to max level and you even do LFR, you're still not ready at all for normal. So this is what's happened, is that Blizzard has created this difficulty mountain that players reach whenever they get done with all of the pre-created fucking child-proof, like, bubble-wrapped baby content that Blizzard has created for them where nobody can be mean to them. And as soon as they step out of that bubble, they get fucking popped. And that's normal. That's what happens. That is the issue. Whereas before in Classic, it would teach you how to do that all the way through. And that's the issue that it doesn't do anymore. Watch Twitter. Look at Twitter. You got 9,000 likes. Blizzard's not replying. Yeah, they're not going to either. It's not going to happen. So yeah, that's basically what happens here. Is if they don't remove it, it should have just done Titanforge or Warforged and Mythic Raids or 10 above the dungeon. Well, generally, like, so Preach actually brought up something that I totally forgot about, which is the fact that Titanforging used to not occur as often on 10-man difficulties. I totally forgot about that. That was a long, long time ago. I didn't remember that happening at all. But it's actually really good that that I do remember that, because it was like, I don't know, it's like one of those examples of something that, like, there was a lot of context for it, and I just totally forgot all about it because it was so long ago. And bad players in Classic just stopped playing before max level. Well, no, I mean, I think that's not necessarily true. I mean, obviously, a lot of people never met 60 at max level, but it doesn't mean that, like, all the time, like, basically, here's another way to look at it. All the time, like, between here and here, all the way from, like, level 10 to max level, you are planning on what you were going to do at max level here. At here, you don't make any plans at all because you start at level 110. And that's the issue right there. They should at very least limit forging to next tier. Well, I don't really know, man. I have no idea. Well, let me see. Yeah, I guess I can call McConnell. Is it time? I said I would do that. Your mom played WoW in Classic and got better because of the difficulty curve. So my mom is actually a very good example, okay? I will use my mom as an example to prove this point, okay? My mom in vanilla WoW got up to level 60. It took her a long fucking time, but she made it. And she got up to level 60, and she knew that if she wanted to get better gear, she had to raid. And you know what she did? She joined a fucking guild, and she raided. And I remember waking up in the fucking morning, and she had just gotten her morning tea, having a great fucking time, and she's about to do Dire Maul. And I was like, Mom, bye, I'm going to school. I came back home from school. She was not as happy at that point, but she was still in Dire Maul, and she was still raiding with her guild. Then I was like, later on, Mom, what's for dinner? She's like, I don't know what's for dinner. It doesn't matter. I'm doing this. And I saw her again. She's still in Dire Maul. At this point, not happy at all. Very, very upset. Then I come down for bed, and I ask her, I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, I hate this guild. And I looked, and she was at the stairs, and everybody in her group was dead, and the demon guys up at the top were just running back from their corpses. So, my mom spent like 12 hours in that raid that day. And she did the same thing with BRD, and a number of other raids too. She was in dire straits. Yeah, it was a bad time. We're Child Protective Services with your mother saying, can I get that? Well, no, basically, even like the worst thing is like her guild, she was so nice and, you know, raid. Well, you could actually, yeah, I think you could do 10-man dire mall. I think they did it actually with 10 people. Maybe I'm wrong, but I remember them doing it with 10. Right? No? It was a 5-man? There's a, yeah, there was a 10. Dire mall used to be 10-man. Yeah, I think it used to be 10-man, but the point that I'm trying to make here, obviously, is that, wait, what's this? Oh, yo, thank you, bro. Are you giving it to me? Thank you, dude. Wow. What is it? You could do all dungeons on 10-man. Well, they brought a 10-man raid, and they were still wiping even though it was for 5, okay? That's the point that I'm trying to make. And she actually was able to step out of her shell and start raiding and doing things. And the way that she knew what to do is that she spent all of this time right here, all of this time planning for getting to here. Whereas now, all she does is she doesn't fucking do anything. She just goes around and collects gear and does world quests, right? There's no reason. And this is the issue right here, this difficulty curve. Blizzard never challenges players. And as soon as players are taken out of Blizzard's little protections and, you know, bubble wrapping, they get fucking stomped on because of how difficult this content is compared to LFR, where success is basically guaranteed. And it was just exactly what Preach said. Blizzard is basically guaranteeing success in that content. They're saying that if you queue up for this content, you're going to complete the content. That's exactly what it's going to be. And that's the problem, is that you can't create content that has a guarantee of success. I mean, is it even really a game at that point? And like, that's a big question to ask. Like, is it really a game whenever all the content that you're doing is guaranteed for you to be successful? It's programmed for you to win, and it's not really difficult at all. It's not challenging in one bit. Like, I would say, like, maybe it's not even a game at that point. It's hard to say. The post about the German forums hit 500 posts. The GM response, "You are the voice of the WoW community. Only you can change things."